Hello everyone, Mary the Avon lady here, and I have in front of me a vintage catalog. This is a Montgomery Ward catalog which I found on eBay, and this is a real treat, I hope, for a lot of you those of you who are interested in this kind of thing, and those of you who are curious and want to learn. This is from the summer of 1938. And I'm just really amazed at the condition of this catalog. It's just in really good condition. It doesn't look that old. I'm really amazed, and it's a nice catalog. You know, I made a recording of myself going through a vintage 1940s Montgomery Ward catalog a couple of months ago, which is posted on my YouTube channel. Of course, you can check that out if you want to. And you know, that was interesting. I like that catalog, but this one is just so much more interesting to me. I don't know why, because I do like 1940s fashion, but you're going to see in just a moment. I'm going to open this up. You're going to see what I'm talking about. This is a really nice catalog, and I like the styles of clothing in this, especially for women and children. Well, girls especially. Sorry guys, you know, but I guess that's just how it was back then. Not as much variety for the guys, unfortunately. And I'm just, you know, really impressed by this. And, you know, let me start off by saying, I know I've already said this before in other videos that I've made, but for those of you who haven't seen those videos yet, just let me tell you one thing. You know, a lot of you are not old enough to remember what it was like to live before the days of the internet and home computers. So a long time ago, you know, this is how people shopped. If you lived in a small town and you didn't have a lot of stores and a lot of variety, you could order things on from mail order catalogs. And you know, if you lived in a rural area, you know, there was not a lot of stores nearby. You know, it wasn't convenient to travel far away to shop. This is the way that people shopped, and so these were a big deal long time ago. And, you know, I don't know when they stopped producing these huge catalogs. Sorry, I'm washing clothes today, so that's probably what, if you hear any water running, that's what that is. So probably about the mid to late 90s, early 2000s, I guess, you know, these big retailers like Sears and JCPenney's, they probably stopped sending out the catalogs at that point, these big catalogs, because there's just no more need to, because people were shopping more and more online. So there wasn't a need for them anymore. I mean, some companies still do send out catalogs, of course, but smaller ones, like, for example, LL Bean sends out catalogs, Lands' End, and a few other companies send out catalogs. But nothing like this. I mean, this had everything. Okay, you know, when I was growing up, we did not have a Montgomery Ward's. I grew up in the South. We didn't have a Montgomery Ward's. We had Sears and JCPenney's, of course, which my mother didn't really care for those stores too much. I mean, you know, now that Sears is gone, you know, I kind of miss it. But I remember going into Sears occasionally. We would go just to look around to see what they had. And of course, my parents would, you know, when they were shopping for appliances a long time ago, they would look at, you know, at Sears to see what they had. But my mom's favorite stores were Belk, which was, you know, I mean, it's a good department store, don't get me wrong. I mean, that's just what we had where I lived. We had a Belk, and we had a store called, well, it was far away from us, but occasionally when we were traveling, we would stop at a big department store called Rich's, which is no longer in existence, unfortunately. It was bought out by Macy's many years ago, but it was a big department store like Macy's. It was a nice department store. So we had a few other ones, but those were the main ones, and those did not send out catalogs. So I didn't get to see these kind of catalogs too often, only when I was visiting other people's houses, you know. But these were very entertaining to look at. Okay, so let's start off here. We have, this is immediately when you open the catalog, this is what you see. It's a beautiful picture of a little girl watering some flowers with a water can. And she reminds me of Shirley Temple. That's probably not Shirley Temple, of course, because Shirley Temple was a big star back then. She would probably not be in this catalog, but that was, I think, a popular look for little girls during this era. You see the Shirley Temple curls and that style of dress, a short dress above the knees for little girls with, you know, usually like a little Peter Pan collar and little short sleeves like that. Um, yeah, those kinds of socks and shoes. So remember that, America was still in the Great Depression. I think maybe things were starting to get better. Gradually by the late 1930s, things were starting to improve. I don't know that for sure. I'm not old enough to remember these times. Of course, I wasn't yet born. Let's just turn the page here. Okay, prepare for spring inside the home. So they sold things for the home besides just clothing. This is what I guess a typical American bedroom would look like back then. I'm not saying that everybody had this style of bedroom, but it's just a classic look. And here we have like a den, probably. Back then they didn't even have televisions, not to mention computers, but they didn't even have TVs yet. So what did people do with themselves with no TVs to, nothing to watch? I guess they read books, and of course they kept busy. They didn't have all the modern conveniences that we have today. So there was a lot of work to do. Not fast. They didn't have fast food too much. Okay. Oh, and there's a 1930s kitchen. Pretty. Okay, let's keep moving. Okay, I'm going to record me going through this catalog like in short segments, because I don't want the individual videos that I make to be too long. Okay, so of course, whenever you open this catalog, Montgomery Ward, at least back in the 1930s, back when this was new, they wanted you to immediately be intrigued by what they had to offer. So of course they're going to put their best foot forward and show some of their nicest things at the beginning of the catalog, of course. So this is immediately what we see when we turn the page. There's some beautiful fashions for women and for children. That's for a little girl, and there's a little boy. He's wearing shorts. She's wearing a skirt. Well, I know that's like a pinafore. Bathing suits. There's a suit for a guy and a nice dress for a female, for a young lady, and nice shoes there. And hats, of course, were a big thing. The majority of women and girls wore their hair short back then. I don't recall seeing really any women with long hair. I mean, I'm talking about in the United States, and I don't know about the rest of the world. I'm sure in other parts of the world, a lot of women and girls still wore their hair long and up, but short hair was very much in fashion back then. Okay. I don't know if Joan Crawford, who was a famous actress back then, if she inspired some of the styles of that era, because, well, for one thing, she was always slim, always. I think throughout her whole life, I've never seen a picture of her where she was heavy. She was always very thin, and she was, she had an athletic figure and, kind of broad shoulders, and slim hips. So that seems to be the silhouette that they were going for back then. So I don't know if she inspired those looks, or if that was just the style back then and she just happened to wear that style very well. It suited her. I don't know. But every time I see these styles, that's immediately who I think of. I think of Joan Crawford. Okay. It's a bathing suit. Illustration of a bathing suit. Okay. Some of the pages are going to be stuck together. I'm not saying that this catalog is perfect, in perfect condition, but it is in very good condition considering the age of this catalog. It's in very good condition. Hey, what do you know? These are little swatches. This is actual fabric. Wow. Letting you see the fabric before you order so that you'll know you'll have an idea of what you're going to get. Amazing. So that's what these are. They're little swatches. I mean, you can lift this up, see? That's a swatch. And it lets you know what it feels like. Not only what it looks like, but what it feels like. So we have spun rayon, acetate rayon shark skin, Bamberg rayon triple sheer. What does that say? I don't know. Pefferle down rayon crepe, cotton shantung broadcloth, acetate rayon crepe. And aren't those beautiful dresses? Very pretty. Yep, short hair was the thing back then for women. Free and easy, colorful sports clothes. California. California was like the promised land back then. I've never been to California, believe it or not. I know it's a beautiful state. I've just never been. Maybe one day I'll get to go. Okay, those are beautiful tops. All of them. Of course, some I like better than others. They're all nice. I'm really impressed. You know, I never thought a lot about Montgomery Wards. We had one store that opened near us, but it didn't stay in business for very long. And by the way, I think I'm mistaken. I think Montgomery Wards is still open. Sears, I believe, has all but closed all of its doors. I think it's no more. I'm not 100% sure about that. But let's just say Montgomery Wards is not what it used to be. And I'm really impressed by the way the clothes looked back then. They're very nice. You know, the Montgomery Wards that I remember vaguely didn't really have anything that impressed me. You know, didn't care to go back in there after going in there maybe one or two times and just looking around. But this is all nice stuff. You know, maybe the quality just changed over the years. Because, you know, more and more stores opened, you know, there's more competition. Back then in the 30s, maybe there wasn't as much competition, so they could make nicer clothing. Maybe that's it. I'm just guessing. So this is like horse riding clothing, equestrian, I guess that's the word. Okay, now I'm beginning to smell the catalog a little bit. It smells old, a little bit stale. Some odor just kind of wafted up as I turned this page. Or turn the pages to get to those two pages. I smelled it a little bit. So it is beginning to smell like an antique, I guess you could say. Okay. Aren't these lovely? Beautiful. Now these are kind of dressy dresses. You know, I'm not an expert on fashion, definitely not on, you know, early 20th century fashion. I guess you would say the 1930s were still technically early 20th century. I would say the 1940s, 50s, and 60s is probably mid 20th century. 70s, 80s, and 90s are late 20th century. So I'm not an expert on early 20th century styles, but these styles are quite different than the looks of the 1920s. The 1920s, the dresses were shorter, a little bit shorter. They were not mini skirts, but a little bit shorter. And the waists they had dropped waist dresses. That was the look in the 1920s. And whenever the 1930s rolled around, the waist returned back to the natural position at the natural waist, as you can see. No more dropped waist dresses, and the skirts were definitely longer. Oh wow, isn't that sexy? Very, very pretty. All right, I'm trying to turn the page here, and they are stuck. There's just so much good stuff here. I mean, it's unbelievable. Okay, those are illustrations of different dresses. What does it say here? 2 specially designed styles both equally flattering to women of all heights, all types, all ages. Okay. So yeah, I mean, a lot of these styles are geared towards younger women. Of course, they have younger models showing them off. And if you're an older woman, you know, it might be a little bit more challenging finding things that look good, I'm guessing. That's beautiful. Okay. I want to take a little bit of a longer look here. Those are some pretty styles. You know what? I like the styles of the 1940s. I'm thinking, though, maybe I like the 1930s styles a little bit better. Of course, not everybody could afford to dress well during the 1930s. We were still in a Great Depression. Okay. There's just a lot to look at, as I've already said here. Some beautiful dresses. Look how much they were back then, $2.98. Oh, I like the green one. I like them all. Do any of you like to watch classic movies on Turner Classic Movies? If you do, I'm sure you've probably seen some of these very same styles or similar styles in those old movies from the 1930s. Pretty. You know, I wonder what it was like to live back then. It's a floral print. Oh, those look like evening dresses. Aren't those beautiful? Oh my gosh. That's beautiful. Look at the sleeves. There's like fur on the sleeves. Is that real fur? I know it's not, you know, it's no longer really socially acceptable to wear fur these days, but a long time ago, fur was a status symbol. You know, people did wear fur. Gorgeous. Beautiful. All of these styles are. Wow, that's a coat. Okay, now we're getting into the evening gowns. Look at that. Polka dots. Society News by Ward's Fashion Reporter. Dancing Debs play up new corseted look in formals, teaming taffeta and net. Yeah, not everybody could afford these. Even though this was Montgomery Ward, this was not high fashion. You know, of course, department stores, you know, of course they copied, you know, high fashion styles. But aren't these gorgeous? I mean, they look like they should cost more is what I'm trying to say. So this is wedding attire, wedding dresses, announcing the season's big wedding featuring new festive fashions. Wow. I am really pleasantly surprised. There's so many pages here. It's just going to be really hard to go through all of these. I know I will go over an hour easily if I go through every single page, which I can't do. You guys will get bored anyway. Look at that style. You know, I hope I'm not moving around too fast, but like I said, I'm trying to get through it quickly. You can always pause if you want, if you see something that you want to look at longer. Now these are styles for older women, or women who are a little bit heavier, not model thin, which a lot of women are not model thin, and I think this is great. Size 36 to 53. Now I don't know what that would be in today's clothing sizes. Okay, so I know you see that 53 and you're like thinking, oh my gosh, what is that? But I don't know. Let's just look at the styles and not think too hard about that. Pretty. These are very, very beautiful, dignified looking styles for older women, and like I said, plumper women. So they were trying to, they had them in mind too, trying to create styles that were flattering for them, that they could wear and be proud of. Okay, let's move on. There's a coat. Uh-oh. So that was kind of expensive compared to the other dresses. $10.98. Nice. I'm a big fan of like 1970s fashion, for example, early 70s, late 60s. I mean, I like really the fashion from all decades, I think, of the 20th century, pretty much. I mean, I don't really get into like early 1900s, and I'm not really a big fan of the 1920s, but from the 1930s on, I like it all, pretty much. But I do have my preferences, and I was just thinking, the styles for women, older women, and kind of plumper women in the late 60s and early 70s, they just were not pretty. And it seems like, all the great style, clothing styles of that era, they were all geared towards young women and slender women, and to me, it would kind of suck just to be an older woman during that time, or, a plumper woman, and to see these young women wearing all of these trendy, beautiful things, and you couldn't wear that. But I really like these. I think these are better than what I just described, like the fashion for older women from the late 60s, early 70s. I think this is much nicer. Of course, all of this stuff would have been woefully out of style, after the 1930s. You didn't see this anymore. But, I like that they had everyone in mind. They were trying to come up with styles for every figure and every age. That's what I'm trying to say. And here we have some maternity clothes. Maternity fashion. I can't say much about the maternity fashion from back then, because I don't really know. I don't think that's maternity. What does it say here? Okay, accessory dresses change their appearance every day by wearing different accessories. Inexpensive, clever idea. So this was like a money-saving thing. You could change the look of your dress, and maybe people wouldn't suspect that you were wearing the same dress, more than once in a week. You know what I mean? You could wear it maybe 2 or 3 times a week and just change up the look a little bit. Like I said, not everybody had money to spend during the Great Depression, so that was an idea. It was to give women an idea about how they could save money and change up their looks a little bit. Okay. $2.98. So these were cheaper dresses. Yeah, I'm not knocking them. I'm just saying they were not as expensive as some of the other ones that we've seen. And I guess this is a maternity style. You know, the maternity fashions of the past, you know, are so much different than those of today. Really, really different. Okay. And these are more inexpensive, $198 each. Those are pretty. You know, these could be for, you know, very young women. Of course, when you're younger and you have a youthful figure, you can get away with wearing cheaper fabrics and, you know, more skimpy styles. When you're older, you need this is just my opinion, it's also the opinion of other people as well. I mean, just higher quality clothing and not as skimpy. You need more coverage. I'm not saying that these styles are skimpy. I'm just saying by today's standards, they're not. But maybe in the 1930s, you know, they were just youthful styles. They're showing more arms, you know, like the sleeves are short. Well, in some cases, you know, as women age, sometimes they want to cover up their arms, especially from the elbow up, and not wear sleeveless things. I'm not saying that all women think that way. You know, you do you wear whatever you want. I'm just saying that that's just how some older women feel. Okay, here we have some cute styles. It says sheer cotton favorites. So these are for warm weather. And once again, I would say, you know, younger women, probably dotted Swiss. I love dotted Swiss. Yeah, I mean, they look very youthful. You know, these would probably be for 20-somethings and teenagers, teenage girls, like older teenage girls. They didn't really think of teenagers as kind of being a different group. When you were a teenager back then, you were sort of in between childhood and adulthood. But, you know, some people didn't even graduate from high school back then, and they immediately joined the workforce when they were old enough. You know, women got married really young when they were in their late teens and started having families very young. So, you know, it's not like it is today and has been for the past few decades where, you know, teenagers have their own fads and music they listen to and their own slang. I mean, it was a bit different back then. You know, as soon as you were old enough and you were able, you know, a lot of teens went to work. They certainly didn't stay home and live with their parents to the age of 30, or, you know, most people didn't go to college back then. You know, they didn't live at home with mom and dad or in the garage, you know, while they were attending classes in college. They certainly didn't go to college and stay in a dormitory. Most people didn't. Some people did, but not many. So you probably won't see that here. You won't see a special section just for teen girls or teen boys. That's what I'm trying to say. They're going to be mixed in with the women's fashions as well. Okay, price low, weighty problem. Here's figure flattery for you in cool slimming dresses. So these were for heavier women. These styles here. They were meant to slenderize the figure. And back then, I think women wore probably girdles and pantyhose. You just didn't go anywhere without pantyhose on your legs. I mean, maybe young women in the summertime, they would wear sandals without pantyhose. But, you know, once you reached a certain age, you just wore pantyhose all the time and slips. Okay. So this is a uniform. What is a uniform for? I'm not sure. Our finest uniform. Maybe that's for waitressing jobs, or that's not a nursing uniform. Almost looks like a waitressing uniform. I'm not sure. If you hear any background noise, that's my oven. It's preheating. Gotta make me some lunch. Okay. $0.79 cotton. So I guess these cotton dresses or frocks were cheaper, I guess because of the fabric, probably. Some other fabric was probably more expensive, like rayon. I don't know that for a fact. I'm just guessing. Okay, what do we have here? Oh, cool. Overalls, pants. Now, women did not wear pants too often. You know, if you're working at a factory, it was obviously more practical to wear pants. And by the way, women did work in factories in the 1940s. If you're working on a farm, obviously, you'd want to wear pants probably. But just every day, like if you're going out, if you're going to school, if you're going to work, a lot of women didn't work back then, but you know what I mean. You're going to church, you certainly didn't wear pants. Girls did not wear them to school. They wore dresses or skirts. So this says thrifty, tidy. So they're just showing cheaper styles. I am trying to take advantage of whatever natural sunlight is left. You know, I had to temporarily put off recording myself making a recording of me going through this catalog because I had other pressing things to do. So now I'm back and I'm going to go through more of this catalog. You know, it's always my intention to never take too long when I'm going through these, but there's just so much to see that it's really hard to get through this fast. And I'm not even covering everything I see in the catalog. I'm just trying to skim through it, but there's a lot here. So I think I left off at the smocks the last time I was recording. And here we have these beautiful hats. You know, you don't see hats like these anymore. Not really. I mean, you see stuff like that, but some of these you don't see. That one has a veil. That one looks very 1930s-ish. That one has a veil too. Nice, beautiful. I guess if you were to wear these out in this day and age, people might think you're a little bit cuckoo. I mean, the kind with a veil. I'm not saying that you are. I'm just saying you just don't see that. There's nothing wrong with it. It would just be unusual for some people to see, since they're not used to seeing it. Okay, there is a little bit of a glare. Some more beautiful hats. That one also has a veil. You know, that always used to fascinate me when I was a little girl. When I would see old, you know, these old vintage images of women wearing hats with a veil, like these. Netting. That's not a veil, sorry. Maybe that's not the right word to use. Netting, I guess you could say. Though it does cover the face. Let's see, how do they describe this? Hand woven, I don't know what that word is. Straw. Says it looks expensive. Drooping bonnet brim. Grosgrain. This is always a word I hate. Grain, ribbon tied from each side of the creased crown. Fine lace veil for witchery. Ooh, doesn't that sound seductive? Witchery. I like the way they describe that. So it is a veil, and I was using the correct terminology. It is a veil. It's pretty. And I'm sure that was meant for, I don't know, just kind of that doesn't really look like an evening hat, but I think it's more of an evening look with a veil. Okay, let me move on. So as I've already mentioned before, Montgomery Ward was not high fashion, but they were copying high fashion styles, of course. This is just, clothing and hats and accessories for, middle America, just your average American who could afford it. Okay, lots of pretty styles here. If I'm going too fast, well, it's because I'm trying to get through this, but also, I just don't want to take too long. If I'm going too fast, please do pause if you see something that you want to look at a little bit longer. And I'm not going to bother to read all the fine print. Sometimes I might read some of it, but not too much, because I just don't want to bore you guys. I don't want to take too long. I don't want to spend too long on one thing. And now that I think about it, I know I said that this is kind of a modern approach for women to cover their heads. This is they're making a fashion statement really with these hats. They're not using scarves or kerchiefs or mantillas like they do in Spain and Latin America. But before the 20th century, women actually did cover their heads with bonnets. So they've always covered their heads, and I don't know why this suddenly stopped in the mid-20th century. I don't know. I mean, women still did wear hats, but not as much. And it was more of a fashion statement from then on. Beautiful coats. And fitted too, unlike the 1950s styles, which are kind of boxy. Some of these are a little bit more fitted, like they have a belt at the waist. So these are supposed to be for spring. If you live in a climate or lived in a climate that was cold during the spring, this is what you would wear. Of course, where I live, we really don't have we don't have a lot of cool spring weather, a little bit. Usually not enough to justify buying a spring coat, in my opinion. Of course, you can do what you want. Okay, casual styles for your busy life. Okay, let's move on. I'm going to have to skip through some of the ladies' fashions because there's just so much here. Just too much. More coats. Probably these are going down a little bit more in the price range. Isn't that pretty? I mean, it's very old-fashioned looking, but it's got a fur trim. Fur used to be a status symbol. Now it's not politically correct anymore. It's not PC to wear fur anymore. I'm sure some people still do, but it's not nearly as fashionable as it once was. What is that? Red, silver dyed, cross dyed. Oh my gosh. Was that really it says natural head? Oh my gosh. Now, even if I lived back then, I would not want to wear something like that. That's just disgusting. That's just my opinion. That's a little bit too much. I'm nostalgic, but not that nostalgic. Am I really looking at an animal head here? Scarves of selected skins, natural head, jaw clasp. Okay. Natural Russian red fox. Silver dyed or cross dyed Russian fox. How do they get Russian foxes? I don't know. Maybe they just said it was a Russian fox to make it sound more exotic. I don't know. I don't know about the different breeds of foxes. Okay, so we do have fashions for juniors. And these are more youthful styles for young girls, young women, teenagers. Pretty. And say you can wear as you pay. See Ward's time payment plan on page 6. So even now we do have payment plans. Most stores, I don't know of any place in America that has layaway anymore, but a long time ago they used to do layaways where you could if you wanted to purchase something, you could make like a down payment, and some stores would hold the item or items for you in the back, and you would make small payments. Usually it was only for maybe, I don't know, a month or so that they would do that. And if you didn't pay for it by the time, the agreed upon time was over, you just, you didn't get the merchandise, obviously. So they were doing payment plans even back then. And now for a coat to make you completely a new woman. Sizes 39 to 53. I know you're thinking, oh my gosh, 39 to 53, but the dress sizes were different back then. They were different than they are now. That's cute. Polka dot raincoat. Oh, that's cute. There's one that's kind of, I guess that's see-through, clear. Gay rubber raincoat. Gay means happy, of course. Year-round favorite. Knee-free stockings. What does that mean? Okay. So they're not knee highs. They come down a little bit below the knee. And of course, stockings were so important back then. Out sizes for the stouter woman. So that's just a way of saying plus sizes, like we know today, plus size. Thrift price, full fashioned silk. All right, I'm not going to spend any time on stockings, okay? Just stockings were just so important back then. You just don't know how important they were. These are gloves, of course. People wore gloves back then more than they do now. And ooh, handbags. How nice. Look at that. Okay, I don't know what these are. Waistcoats. Just like a little fashionable thing to spruce up your wardrobe, I guess. These are collars that you can buy separately. You can add that to your dress to kind of spruce it up a little bit, add some interest, some flair. Isn't that pretty? And what are these? Clips for the hair? Let's see. Hair nets, combs. Okay, so these are hair accessories. Hair nets. And some beautiful kerchiefs for wearing around your head. I do like that look, and actually that look was really popular like in the 1960s. I think the early to mid 60s, and maybe in the 1950s, wearing a kerchief around your head. Okay, these are women's undergarments, which we're not going to spend much time on. These are like shapers, I think, to to hold things in. Like today we have Spanx and other types of body shapers. It's the same thing, same concept. Okay, foundation garments is what they're called. Okay, so you get the idea. I'm not going to spend time on this. Girdles, garters, I guess. Some of these things do look uncomfortable. But well-dressed women wore this kind of stuff. Ooh, they even have ones for maternity. And they had pads for bras. Isn't that cute? So even back then, women wanted to amplify, I guess you could say, to, you know, increase their bust size if they were not happy with it. They called those falsies in the 1950s. I don't know when they started calling them falsies, but you get the idea. Falsies. Alright, I'm going to move through the underwear. We're going to get to another section here. Now, I think I've already gone through the shoes, didn't I? Dang, I hope I haven't, you know, just repeated myself. I have a feeling I did. Oh well. That's what I get for not finishing up the first time. Okay. I do apologize. Yeah, I've already been through some of this before. Okay, let's just skip around here. We've got some cute little hats for little girls. Bloomers, those are undergarments, underwear, slips, of course. So important back then. You just didn't go anywhere without a slip. Even for little girls, little toddlers, even they had slips. Okay, so this is the kind of styles that men wore. I mean, those are kind of fancy for underwear, aren't they? I mean, that one's even got pleats and buttons at the yoke. And they had white ones. They had some that were kind of like full body undergarments. I'm not sure why anybody would choose that, but you know, whatever. I'm not knocking it, but obviously people don't wear that kind of thing today. It's probably not that comfortable or convenient. More undies for children. Those kind of look like onesies that we have today a little bit. Okay. Oh, these are shoes for boys, built to fit the needs of active growing boys. And you could measure your foot or your child's foot. Oh wow, look how stylish. Did I skip over the boys' clothing section? I hope not. No, okay, I think we've already gone through the girls' stuff. So let's spread the love around and go to the men's stuff. Because actually, I think men's clothing from this era is kind of more interesting than the clothing for men in the 1940s. I really think so. I think they had more variation, even though this was the Great Depression years. Seems like they had some more variation. Okay, here we go. Yes. Here we go. So these are, it looks like they're shoes for girls. Here. They're 50 Charmers. I guess it's saying you get 2 for 1. I don't know, you can buy them as a pair. Save money that way. I guess that's what it's trying to say. 50 Charmers. You can get black and white. White and black pattern. Okay. Oh, and socks. They had cute socks back then, huh? And those have little patterns on them. Infants and tots anklets. Okay, and those were to hold stockings up. That's what the garters are for. Keeping stockings up and costs down is a problem. Okay. All right, here we go. Now we're going to move to some fun stuff here. Look at that. I know this doesn't seem PC now for him to be holding that, but I guess, you know, the Depression era was. Is that like a gun he's holding? I mean, I know it's not a real gun; it's a toy gun. But what kind? Is it like a air rifle or? I don't know. I don't know if that's supposed to resemble. If it's just like an air. I don't know what kind of guns they had back then for kids. You know, it's supposed to resemble a machine gun. I don't know. If somebody knows, that's fine. You can, you know, let me know down in the comments section. But it just seems a little bit. I mean, you definitely wouldn't see this today. You would not, you know, look, you know, at a department store website or the Walmart website or Target or whatever and see a little boy holding a gun, not even a toy one. I mean, advertising clothing. I mean, yeah, if he was advertising the product, the toy itself, sure, but not to advertise clothing like this. So I guess this is the era of, I mean, it's the Great Depression, obviously, but also the era of kind of gangsters, you know, being like Bonnie and Clyde, kind of having a, you know, some mafia, who is it out, you know, I don't remember all their names, sorry, but you know what I'm talking about. It was that era of them being famous, and they didn't have TV yet, so I guess, you know, they were kind of glamorized, you know what I mean? I don't even know all the names of the Depression era gangsters. I just knew that there were some. Okay. So these are the styles for the little boys, and I'm kind of lingering here a little bit longer because I feel like they're kind of fun styles. Now, you would see something like this in the 1970s. Of course, it was sort of, I mean, it was updated in the 1970s, but I think that's where the original fashion comes from. If you guys hear a lot of background noise, I'm in my kitchen, so, you know, dishwasher's operating right now. Plus there's a noise from outside. And there's a little sailor suit. And I guess those are Navy suits, nautical looking admiral cap. Nautical looking suits, just really, really cute stuff for little boys. You know, I always tend to think that boys got left out, you know, back a long time ago. I mean, not so much today, but, you know, let's just face it, women have more variety. Girls have more variety than men and boys do. Okay, I won't spend too long on this. Boys' pajamas, those are cute. Belts, accessories, ties. Okay, let's move on to what is up next? Is there anything we left behind? So there's men's hats. You know, men also wore hats, not just women. I guess it was just, you know, a thing of feeling like you were, you didn't feel complete unless you had a hat on your head when you went out. Does that make sense? What kind of pants are those? Breeches? I'm not sure what those would have been worn for. And these are neat pants, kind of wide-legged pants. Some in plaid. What are those? Maybe like tweed? Well, it says cotton here. Let me aim downwards here. Cotton twill, good quality white duck. And we have some suits for the guys, young men. They're looking very dapper, very stylish. Looks like something you'd see out of a movie. I like this picture here. They're at like a soda shop, some kind of shop where they sell sodas. That's what they're holding in their hands. Probably Coca-Cola. What do they call those guys? A soda jerk or something? Ones that would, you know, be behind the counter serving them. Okay, let's get past these. So those look like Western hats almost. I don't know what kind of hats they are. I'm just saying. Okay, More men's stuff. Stylish. I'm kind of getting an idea from where some of the 1970s fashions came from, where the ideas came from, like this here. All right, don't want to spend too much time here, but I don't want to leave the guys out. There's actually a lot of interesting things here. You know, they didn't have as much, I mean, men obviously don't have as much color choices as women and girls do. But there's still some interesting styles here, very, very nice styles. They had interesting details, these suits did. Spectacular bargains for men. Okay, let's move right along. There's a few more. Perfect April to October suits because they're tailored from half-weight all-wool worsteds. That's the word, way you say that word. Okay, let's keep going. Let's see. So then they have men's accessories, men's pants, suspenders. It's a beautiful look there. Men's pajamas. I'm skipping around a little bit. There's a kind of a portly man wearing pajamas. Just showing you that they fit different kinds of bodies. Pajamas in some nice prints. Oops, I didn't mean for that to happen, but this came out. So I really think that this is a catalog that really wasn't looked through very much. Was still here. It was not attached, but I don't think it's ever really been taken out. So I guess this is what you would send your order in. Don't seal until you're sure that your check is signed, required postage is enclosed, sizes and colors are clearly stated, your name and address are on the order form, of course. All right. And please write name and address plainly. Name, street, and number, rural route, box number, post office, state, Montgomery Ward, Kansas City, Missouri. Okay, so those are some tie selections. Okay, let's move on. Okay, men's undergarments. We're not going to spend much time here. Don't know why they had a one piece like that. That's a look that I really don't find that attractive, but you know, whatever. I'm not sure why they wanted that look. The Value Champion. All right. Okay, there's a guy smoking a pipe. All right, let's move on. Oops, I am accidentally bending the pages a little bit. Don't mean to do that. Okay, so I think we have covered most of the clothing. And of course there's, you know, shoes. Okay, these are actually boots. Cowboy boots. So those were a thing even back then. What does that say? Dashing boots for the young cowboy. Safety first shoes. So they had safety shoes for people who you know, who needed them for work. I guess so you wouldn't slip and fall. So even back then they understood that. Those look like those are for work, working outdoors, fishing. Okay, sorry. Those are for fishing. More boots. Okay, and what are these things? Tools? No. Those are for shoes, I'm sorry. Like polish, I think. tube white. Yeah, I think that's for shoes and bags. Okay. All right, let's move on to some fun stuff here. So, obviously, people did sew back in the 1930s. They're still sewing, probably a lot more than they do today. You know, it's kind of flipped a little bit because back then, people sewed out of necessity and to save money, and they would try to make do and mend, or mend and make do, mend whatever they had, and try to make do with it as best they could during the 1930s. And maybe they would try to salvage fabric and try to make something out of that. So I guess Montgomery Ward's was selling fabric, it looks like. Sheer chiffon, finest washable shears. Slip fabric. I hate slippery fabric. I mean, I'm into sewing. I haven't sewed in a couple of years because I'm just busy right now and I don't have time to do it. But I do love to sew, so I can definitely appreciate this. You could make something like that. You know, there's a lot, but as I was trying to say, so people sewed out of necessity, but nowadays it's kind of an expensive hobby. If any of you know anything about sewing, you know, if you've been in Joann's lately or any sewing store, Hobby Lobby, the fabric is very expensive, and so are patterns. And if you want to buy vintage patterns, which I used to collect a lot of those, it was just sort of a passion that I had for a while, but I gave that up actually. I'm not quite as passionate about them as I used to be. I still have some, but I sold a lot of them. I collected them and I sold them for a while. Sold them on the internet, of course. And, you know, those are expensive too. You know, the ones that are very collectible, they're expensive. So it's not cheap to sew anymore. Isn't that pretty? Acetate rayon crepe, spun rayons, washable practical silks, taffetas, all rayon. What does that say? Ceylonese rayon, superior taffetas, satins. I don't like anything slippery. It's not that easy to sew. Okay, I'll leave the satins to somebody else. Okay, cottons are easy to sew. Anything woven pretty much is easy to sew. So lots of beautiful styles here. I really like that yellow one. Pretty, very pretty. And of course, sewing for the children, for little kids, is so much fun. There's some gingham fabrics. This is kind of like casual everyday stuff. There's some overalls. All right, I am going to finish this up. I know I've said that before, and then I still take a long time. All right, let's move on. Okay. So these are towels, and just letting you guys know, showing you everything, that they sold towels back then. They had linens. I guess these are like runners, probably. I think. I'm not going to bother to read. That's what it looks like to me. Napkins, tablecloths. Oops. Just heard a page rip. All right, let's keep moving. Let's just skip around a little bit. Of course, they had bedspreads, gay, crisp cotton spreads. And china. Ward's finest American dinnerware. Imported genuine china. That's beautiful. That is too. Very nice. So they had, different looks. You can, different looks to choose from. Everybody didn't have to have the same thing. You could pick something out according to your taste and personal preferences and, how you had your home decorated. It's pretty. I think they're all nice. Open stock on old dinnerware. All right, I guess it's kind of a more modern look for that time. Okay, let's keep moving. Oh, and that too. Glassware. I'm not going to spend any time on this. You guys get the idea. Okay. Curtains. What is that? More fabric? If you wanted to sew your own curtains, I guess. This is like home decor stuff. Okay. Okay. Budget laces. You can afford the finest because Ward's prices them low. Just try to equal these values. 94 cents, 134. It pays to buy quality. Use your credit. Only $2 down for a $10 order. See page 6. All right, guys. Let's just... I think we've passed a lot of the cool stuff, which is fashion, which is, mostly what I'm interested in. And I don't want to take too long. They had mattresses back then, cotton mattresses. Fluff Center felted cotton. Bargain specials. They had rugs. And here's another little something. What is that? Stuck between the pages. This is your bank. We appreciate your business. A full service bank. Okay. I guess somebody stuck that there. Obviously, I didn't put that there. I don't know. The person who owned this before me did, I'm sure. Don't know how old that is. Okay. Pyrex. Now I do all my cooking in Pyrex. And that looks like a double boiler right there. This thing right there. Double boiler. Cool. What is that? An ice cream maker? Ward's Finest Act 4 Action Freezer? Okay, I don't know exactly. I'm not going to bother to read that. So that's to purify water, drinking water. Canisters, things for storage. They had it all. It was like the Amazon of its time, the Amazon of its day. This is your one stop for everything. If you lived out in the country, in a rural area, and you didn't have any stores, or not too many, or not a lot of choices, this is the way that you did your shopping back then. Lamps, so it was a big business. And of course the internet changed everything. You don't see a lot of catalogs these days. I mean, you do see some, but not big ones like this, not from big department stores. Some places still do put out catalogs, like some businesses, some LL Bean does, of course. Land's End, I think, still does. Occasionally I'll get one from, like, I think J. Jill and Talbot's, stuff like that. Those are what I get mostly in the mail. But most people do their shopping online. Lady Esther, I'm not familiar with that brand. There's Cody. So I remember the name Cody. Cody must have been around for a while. And the same goes for Pond's. I don't know if they still make Pond's and Cody. Probably. I know the name Pond's has been around for a while. I don't know if they still make it or not. Woodbury's. I don't know if I know that one. Yardley. Of course, I've heard of that. So these are, Max Factor was very famous. I don't think they make Max Factor anymore. Tangy, Princess Pat, Armand. Let's see, The Secret's out. Now you can make your own face cream. Okay, whatever. Ambrosia. Angelus. I guess that's what that says. Okay. So they had makeup, they sold makeup, scales, make your own face cream, right? Skin whiteners, okay, those are for people who had like freckles, dark spots. I mean, from age and from spending too much time out in the sun. Of course, they didn't have sunscreen like we do now, so some people were not happy with that whenever they would, a lot of people like to spend time outdoors and go to the beach, but some people are prone to getting freckles and age spots, and that's what that was for. And they didn't make your freckles or your age spots or whatever disappear overnight. You had to be consistent and persistent. You have to keep applying and applying. I don't know if those really worked or not, but they still make skin lighteners today for the same reason. Freckles, brown spots that people get as they age on their legs and other parts of the body. So that's what that was for. Freckles were not, they're just not really considered to be, I'm certainly don't mean to insult anyone with freckles. Of course, I'm not very heavily freckled. I have a few. Some people in my family have more. Not everyone does, but so some people were sensitive about freckles, and people just wanted to get rid of them back then. But nowadays, some people think freckles are cute, and they are cute. So it's not such a big deal anymore, is what I'm trying to say. Okay, hair remover, that's for underarms. Baldness adds 10 years to your age. So I don't think that these hair tonics really worked, but they did try to sell them to people. And I'm sure some people bought them. Banish gray hair. Okay. I'm not sure if that worked either. Home permanent wave outfit. Perms were popular for a long time. A lot of women would get their hair permed so that it would be curly and it would be easier for them to style. And yes, women used to do home perms too. Okay. Perms are not as popular as they once were. Not anymore. I don't even know if people get perms anymore. Rarely. I've talked to hairdressers before, and they told me that they still have to learn how to do them, though. But they're not as popular as they used to be. Okay. What is that? Evils of constipation? Is that what that says? Okay, so people were dealing with health concerns. Milk of magnesia, candy laxatives. I guess those are for kids. Laxative pills and tablets, mineral oils. Wards digestants, other digestants, diuretics. Those are like water retention. So they even had all that stuff back then. That kind of over-the-counter medication. Okay, razors for the guys. I guess that's an electric razor. What is that, a strap of some kind to sharpen your blade? Watches, those were just so important to people back then. My dad used to say, how can you get through your day, or how can you get through life without knowing what time it is? Watches were just so important to my father and to pretty much everybody. They were always a good gift to give to someone, because sometimes people lose their watch or it breaks. So they were always a great idea for a gift. And here's some for the kids. It's Popeye, Mickey Mouse. That looks like little Orphan Annie. Yeah. Orphan Annie or Dick Tracy. So they had stuff for the kids too. And Mickey Mouse, of course. And there's some for the ladies. Looks more feminine. Norwoods. All right, guys, I am pretty much over this now. So we have some instruments. Looks like banjos and guitars, new strings. I'm telling you, they sold everything. Okay, tents for the outdoors, other things for the outdoors. Try to move a little bit slower so you guys can see. Okay. What did I miss? Bicycles. It's a nice image. Stuff for, looks like they had stuff for gardening. A wallpaper. 1938 wallpaper sample book. Lighting. Okay, so I think that covers it. That's pretty much what I want to go over today. Yeah. This catalog was in really, really good condition considering its age, so I'm guessing that nobody really used it, looked through it too much. It's just kind of beyond me, you know, why would people save it for so many years? Of course, they had no way of knowing that it would ever be worth anything. That's not why they saved it. It's just strange. Okay, guys, that's it for now. And I don't know what decade I will cover next. I will, you know, purchase another, or hopefully come across another vintage catalog that I like one day soon. That's not too expensive. I don't know. I just don't know what decade. I've done the 1970s a couple times, and what other one did I do? Oh, 1940s. Yeah. So 1960s, 1950s. Hopefully I'll find one from those two decades that I like. Okay, guys, thanks for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this.